She's working 2 jobs, don't get enough sleep, barely gets by making ends meet. And when she gets home, the kids are asleep and she cries. He puts on his uniform and walks out the door. He's wondering why he's still fighting this war. He stares at her picture, then he drives away and he cries. What would you do for the ones that you love? Would you walk through the fire? Would you spill your own blood? How do you keep going when the going gets tough? When you give in your all, and your all's not enough. Sacrifice. I've been round the world and I've seen many things. The pain of my brothers and the hurt that it brings. So many people have lost everything and they cry. What would you do for the ones that you love? Would you walk through the fire? Would you spill your own blood? How do you keep going when the going gets tough? When you give in your all, and your all's not enough. Sacrifice. Sacrifice. Doctors, policemen, they've given so much. Soldiers and sailors, they do what they must. American families just getting by. And I cry. My promise to you is I'll never give up. I'll go down that road when the going gets rough. And I'll keep on moving with all of my might. Sacrifice. What would you do for the ones that you love? Would you walk through the fire? Would you spill your own blood? How do you keep going when the going gets tough? When you've given your all and your all's not enough. Sacrifice. Sacrifice.
Well, that was Mack Baily of Music Therapy Retreats. I'm Kathleen Callahan, and welcome to the next edition of Connecting with Kathleen, which is a show where we try to bring local behavioral health providers in so our community can learn about your services. So, Mac, tell us a little bit about that song. Let's start with that, and we can talk about you a little bit and what you do.
We hold music therapy retreats is exactly that. We hold retreats around the country, and that song was written at one of our retreats between a veteran and a Nashville songwriter. The Nashville songwriter is Chris Knoll, and the veteran is Linwood Raybon, and they captured a lot of in that story. Not only the sacrifice of the veterans, but the sacrifices of a lot of everyday people.
Yeah, it's a beautiful song. So I read somewhere that you taught yourself to play guitar by listening to John Denver. Tell me about this. Is that true?
I did. I grew up in a little town in North Carolina and started on piano. But at that time, my piano teacher was the kind that, would had the ruler and slap you on the hands if you weren't playing it correctly. And I said, yeah, I don't want this. And so I ended up picking up guitar and just learning John's music. And I always dreamed of, meeting him and eventually did get a chance to share the stage with him, which was quite an honor.
That's amazing. You have a rich history. You have a master's in music therapy. You're classically trained, I understand,
I am.
with singing also?
I went to the North Carolina School of the Arts and studied opera and oratorio work and then chose my guitar over that. But then at the age of 50, kind of got burned out of life on the road. I was with the group, the Limelighters, and decided I was going to go back to school. And so I went to Colorado State University and got my master's in music therapy, and I could have been every one of my classmates' fathers and some of my professors.
That's great. I hope you're comfortable talking about there's a time in your life where you say music brought you back from the brink of a place in life where you had very little hope.
There, it just was. It was one of those things. It was my, what I call my previous life, my first marriage, and I was living on the East Coast. The East Coast was not. I was living in Maryland, and it just was not my style. I felt like I was really suffocating there. I mean, it just was. I was not in control of my life. I didn't like me, and my life was a pretty tough roller coaster of. Performances were incredible. So when you'd be up here when you came off stage, and then it just would crash every single time. And so I kind of got to the point where I was like, if this is life, I really don't want it. And I came up with a plan. I was ready to end my life. Wow. And at the very last minute, I wrote a song called "Just Because You Can't See Me Doesn't Mean I'm Not There," and that song really saved my life. Not at the time, but it was the turning point for me of kind of taking control of me and my narrative.
Wow. I think a lot of people believe that music is healing, but there is a science to this. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Music touches every part of the brain, and we do a lot of work with PTSD and trauma, and it doesn't have to be an event. It can be vicarious. It can be trauma. It's not a grading level of
exactly.
What you've experienced, whether it's valid for
right.
you to have PTSD.
You'll have
or
clients
trauma.
who'll say, "Well, that's not trauma. That's emotional trauma."
Yep.
You've experienced it, and we can tell because of these symptoms. So you're right. People want to compare to each other and take a look at how it hit you.
And if it's anything affecting your life and how you operate, then that's something that you want to address.
Exactly.
And so music uses the entire brain simultaneously, and it crosses over from one hemisphere to the other. And the interesting thing about music is, because of the properties of music, it entrains into your brain easier and is easier retrieval as well.
Absolutely.
So it really is and the whole time, if there's even damage in the brain, and I'm a very strong believer that the brain is the hardware and the mind and thoughts are the software. And if the hardware is not working well, the software is not going to work well.
Correct.
So I really believe in looking at the neurological aspect of is the brain operating at its best positions and to its best ability. And that's the kind of thing, EMDR can be a benefit
Correct.
with that, because it just increases the neuronal energy. And so music has a way of helping either create new neural pathways, just to put the brain at the best position.
Awesome. So what led you to become a music therapist?
When I decided that we wanted to get off the road, I didn't know what I was going to do. I've just been a performer all my life, and somebody mentioned something about this music therapy stuff, and I was like, yeah, I have no idea what that is. But finally, I made the effort to talk with the Colorado State University faculty, and started realizing, wow, it's pretty cool. And so I went, I would drive from Denver to Fort Collins 5 days a week, and that's like a 60-mile each way.
It's a long drive,
and
that
not
traffic.
Not a fun drive. And for 3 years I did that, and I was taking neuroanatomy 500 level courses. I mean, it was
intense.
It was intense, but it was just the most valuable thing I've done for myself, because all of a sudden I was thinking again, rather than just living by my calendar with as a performer. And so it really, I started learning a lot, and then that led me to asking more questions of, I know that music creates a response in people, but I want to know the whys. I want to know, how can I make that happen every single time, no matter what the situation is. And so that was what was the driving factor. And it just really kept going from there. I'm extremely proud of having the music therapist board certified letter behind my name. It's something that shows that I've really put the work into it. And so I'm very proud of that.
Yeah, I think I met you first early on when you were only doing music therapy before the retreats, and we had the honor of you meeting a couple times with my son, who he fondly remembers to this day. And so to get to experience that firsthand, you are a natural healer.
Thank you. And I definitely, I was very involved with the Aspen School District for
Yes.
a long time and loved it, and had some amazing stories that came out of it, and situations that I'm learned so much from. But now I'm not in the school district, but because of the nonprofit, it really just takes all my time at this point.
We'll talk about the development of that and your target audience with that.
So we started with veterans, and that's been our main demographic that we work with. But it's always been a dream of mine to work with larger demographics of PTSD, which is the largest is domestic violence and abuse. Right. And so we are now partnering with an organization in Nashville called Thistle Farms, and they work with survivors of sex trafficking, prostitution, and addiction. And it is so fascinating how they actually present similarly to veterans, because it really is a loss of identity. And once you're not in the control of anybody,
yeah,
who are you? And so that's kind of, in the basic sense of what we do, we try to reintroduce them to themselves. And we have a couple of psychotherapy topics that we address to try to help get to that point. And we've had some major successes of people that have, we had a guy who came with his family to a retreat, had 3 children and his wife, and he had his service dog with him. And you could just feel this heaviness around this family. And so that was on the Friday night for the dinner, and then Saturday he comes back and he has his service dog. He doesn't talk much, he's just really quiet. And then on Sunday he comes back and he doesn't have the dog with him. And I said, "Where's Ranger?" And he said, "I felt safe without him today." And I said, "Really? How often does that happen?"
Wow.
He says, "I think I went to the store once without him." And the dog is still not a service dog, and it's a family dog. And so I totally believe in service dogs, but I also know that can be kind of a stigma.
Right.
It's a symbol that I need help, or that I'm not as strong as I want to be yet.
Gotcha.
And so the fact that the dog became the family dog and is not a service dog for him was a moment that was really satisfying.
Yeah, you
to
saw
me.
him transform.
Yeah.
And kind of
build
step
that-
into who he is.
Right.
Without the crutches or supports.
Right.
That's beautiful.
So yeah, we love what we do, and we're very grateful for every opportunity, and for our retreats. It's all about.
Walk us through if I came to a retreat, what would I experience?
The opening night is just a dinner where I want them. It's for 3 reasons that we do the dinner. One is so that we can all gather together. They can meet everybody who's going to be there. They meet me. I want them to see where we're going to be so that we can get started on time the next morning. Gotcha. And the most important thing is this is my opportunity to do an assessment, because I'm going to be pairing them with a songwriter later on, and they're going to have a very limited amount of time to develop a relationship and write about something very difficult and tough. And so I want to give them as much of a leg up as I can. So when I'm talking to them, I'm learning their communication style, their personality style, their favorite genres of music,
Nice.
so that I already know my songwriters, so that I can pair them and kind of give them that leg up
Right.
from the get-go. And it makes a world of difference. And so that's the Friday night. Saturday we start, I tell my story about why I started this program, play the song for them just because, and then we do mindfulness, we do active listening, deep breathing, that's all led by music. And because we try to show them how to use these coping skills at any point in your day of your life.
Exactly.
And then we present each person that comes through our program with a brand new guitar, and
they get to keep the guitar.
It's theirs to keep. And
So that's a coping tool for them that they learn, they transform, and they get to bring it home.
I get to bring it home, and that is a huge shock for them. They don't realize, they don't believe that they're going to be able to take that with them.
Yeah.
But we give them, straps that are monogrammed and cases and stands, because I tell them that you don't put it in the case and in the closet, because out of sight, out of mind.
Right.
If it's out,
And
it
then
will
they're
call
pretty
to
good
you.
if they've never played to learn how to play.
So when we sit in a circle, most of them have never played before. The two things are happening. One, if you want to get back to the neurologic part of it,
Right.
Looking at brain images, the prefrontal cortex is hypoactive,
Yes.
and the amygdala, the limbic system, the memories and emotions, is hyperactive.
Right.
So the brain's kind of operating like a teeter-totter with one end on the ground.
Exactly.
So what I did when I put this together was I was thinking, how can I use music to boost
To balance
the
that,
prefrontal
right.
cortex?
Yeah.
So with the guitar, we only do fingerstyle picking,
Okay.
because fine motor initiation comes from the prefrontal cortex. So we're automatically working
Lighten
on
up
that.
that part of the brain.
Plus, it's also fine motor physical therapy, because a lot of times they have arthritis from the stress of their work or the job they were required to do.
Right.
So that's the first thing we do. Then the second thing is, rather than teaching them just chords and songs, we teach them this form of music called tab, which is it's like a language. It's a new language of how to learn music without having to learn music.
Okay.
And so language acquisition,
Right. Prefrontal.
prefrontal cortex. So we're boosting that part of the brain so much within that activity that, but since most of them have never played, we sit around and all of a sudden I see them doing their fingers, and I tell them, I said, I'm not going to have you play for 2 hours, because if your fingers hurt that much, what's the last thing in the world you're going to want to do? Is
Play the
pick it
guitar.
up.
Right.
So at that point, then we introduce psychotherapy topics, and I have one day we talk about identity and the value of identity. And the second day we talk about emotional regulation. And so we do that, and then we have lunch. The songwriters arrive, and then I pair them up, and then they can take off around the location and go find a spot they like. The songwriters are very loyal. They love doing this work. It kind of reminds them why they started focusing on songwriting in the first place, because it helped them work through situations. And we have a songwriter just wants a story. Give me a story and I'll put it to music. These clients, these veterans, these survivors have so many stories that need to be told in a different way. So it's a
Right.
match made in heaven.
Yes.
The other thing that is so powerful about it, most of the time, friends and families listen emotionally. So if somebody shares something that they either a choice they had to do or something that happened to them with a family member or a friend, and they listen to it emotionally, and their response is, "Oh my God," that kind of adds to the stigma immediately, and the guilt and the shame.
Okay.
And songwriters listen lyrically. So they don't listen emotionally. They listen lyrically. So
Yeah.
when you say something that you may not have felt comfortable sharing anywhere else, the songwriter, first thing they're going to do is write that down and say, "That's amazing. Tell me more about that, because that's really cool." And all of a sudden, you start putting these little couplets and phrases together that have rhyme scheme and rhythm, and then it comes together. And the people, the veterans, have no idea how you just did that. But it's so easy for the songwriter, because that's the way they live.
Right. It's what they know.
And then, so they work for about 2 or 3 hours, and then we send everybody home. I don't want any more activities. They can definitely, when they're on their own, they can go to dinner or whatever they want to do. But I want them processing. I want them downtime. I want their
Yes,
brain
when the brain will process.
reliving everything that happened that day. Because I always feel like if you keep adding things on, eventually you're going to forget what happened first.
Exactly.
And so, kind of force them to think about it. And when they come in the next day, not only do they tell me they slept well for the first time, we see physical changes. We see coloration changes where all of a sudden their face is a lot lighter. Their features are higher. And then we redo everything on Sunday that we did on Saturday with, advancing things along the way. And then we have a concert to showcase the songs that have been written. And we've had so many people get up to sing their song. And we have this one guy who got up and sang his song. And I lovingly joke about this, that I think he might have hit one correct note, but it didn't matter.
Right.
He just sang his heart out. And it was the most incredible performance.
That's amazing. When do they get to hear their song during this 3 days?
So they're part
working
of,
together.
They do the first interview thing.
Okay.
And we just had a retreat here in with Windwalkers. Gabrielle, thank you so much. Love working with you.
Great program.
Yep. And so we hold a July retreat there, and we had I had paired a songwriter with a veteran, and they were all staying at the Days Inn in Carbondale, and one of the veteran said during, it's getting late, she goes to get in bed, and she can hear a guitar in the room next door. So she thinks it's one of the other veterans with their guitar, and she's like, I know you just got a brand new guitar, but just give it a break, go to sleep. And but so when she comes in the next day, she's kind of got this song that she's been hearing in her head.
Right.
Well, it turns out her songwriter was staying next door to her.
She was hearing her song.
She was hearing her song, so she came in already knowing her song, but not knowing it was her song. And so when he played it for her, she just started crying because she was like, oh, "This is it." I had this all night long, and so it's really when they come back that third day, the songwriters have definitely put together some kind of a melody to go with it. It's the veterans' words, and then when they play it, they have full. I tell them, I said, if there's anything that bothers you about it, you got to tell the songwriter right from the get-go, because their job is to do the editing.
Right.
That's what they do. And so, but if there's any part of the song that bothers you, it's going to bother you forever, and you won't listen to the song, and it defeats everything that we're trying to do. So, advocate for yourself, and don't be afraid to say, that's not what I would say or how I would say it.
Beautiful. So families come with the veterans, right?
They can. Yep.
What are families' reactions when they hear their loved one's songs?
It blows their mind. Especially, we've had a lot of songs where the songs are written for either the spouse or the children.
Right.
Veterans are put in different situations. Sometimes, one veteran, his wife delivered their child right after he deployed, and he was out he never got a chance to build that relationship. So he was they were kind of strangers to each other. Right. And his song called Stevie, it's on this collection I gave you. Okay. But it's so cool that he talks about how he got a new guitar, and he said, so even if we don't have the words to talk about anything, you sing the song and I'll strum along. And that was his song. Oh, and it's so cool. And he said when he played it for his daughter that all of a sudden they started making music.
Oh, it's beautiful. Bringing families together. Yeah. Awesome. So most of your retreats are in Nashville?
We do 4 retreats in Nashville. We hold retreats in this year's San Antonio and outside of Raleigh, North Carolina, Springfield, Missouri, North Andover, Massachusetts, and Atlanta.
Right. And the veterans, do they pay a fee, or is this a free service to them?
Free service. We partner with the Wounded Warrior Project a lot to help us with the recruiting, and awesome. They also help sometimes with lodging and other costs.
Right. So you are a true nonprofit, and I understand you've got a fundraiser coming up, which is
It's called Stories and Songs from the Farm,
yes.
and it's a collection of songs written at the retreats. and it features the book features the lyrics to the song, and then the story behind the song in the veterans' own words. We interview them and write it up and then give their approval.
Right.
And then we also have a little zip drive disc that includes all the music.
Oh.
And it's pretty powerful songs.
Well, yeah, I know your songs are powerful. So it's a $100 donation to get this program. But we were saying earlier that if a TV show or a movie picks up one of their songs, the veteran gets the credits.
Yeah, the veteran is a full 50-50 co-writer. So if something happens and it generates money, that veteran will receive their fair share of that money as a co-writer.
So this is a definite win-win, putting people out there.
And it's interesting that they want to share their story at this point.
Okay, I was wondering, are they all lining up? Let me be in this book for the. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, they love it.
They
They
want to
really
get
want
it
to be a
out there.
part.
Well, I think it's a great way too to tell the story of veterans in a different way, right? And to humanize them.
At the retreat, the lady that was next to the songwriter at the hotel, she told me, she said, "I love this program because you're not trying to make me a better veteran. That you don't treat me like I'm broken.
Right.
You're just treating me like a human."
That's beautiful.
And that's what we want to do. Because
Awesome.
I don't have any military experience, so.
Right. You're just being who you are. Well, Mac, I want to thank you for being here today. A beautiful story. And you have a webpage, website?
MusicTherapyRetreats.org.
Right. And are you still doing individual therapy?
A little bit.
Okay.
A little bit.
Somebody's interested, they can contact you there.
Yep.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.